Fired Up Wednesday. This is Frank Rockhouse Warren Sports Channel coming at you. I've been sitting here reading some content on Tennessee basketball. Of course, Tennessee basketball yesterday they were on the court. Reporters was able to watch them for a little bit, saw some videos, got some interviews. I didn't get the interviews. There were interviews with 24/7 with VolQuest and such, the rival site, all these. But man, I was sitting here reading the interview with Rod Clark, assistant coach. I was sitting here reading interview with Chaz Lanier, and it's backed up a lot of what I've been saying. I'll tell you, man, after reading what I read on here, I'm even more fired up for this team. The last that I had looked, I can't remember the poll now exactly. I know Jordan Moore, Fox Sports Knoxville, had posted this, but Tennessee come in fifth in the nation in kind of this re-rank. But just looking at what Rod Clark had to say, and I'll get to Chaz Lanier here in a minute. Chaz Lanier has echoed some things I've said on here as well. But Rod Clark talking about this team, and I entitled this "The New Look Vols Basketball Team." And what I mean by that is, they talked about they played faster last year, but he said, we're playing even faster now. This is his quote. He says, I think that we're faster, which we played pretty fast last year. We have a lot of guys that can shoot the ball, spread the floor, a lot of guys, or I would say more guys that make decisions off the bounce. I would say probably a couple more physical drivers, I would say. So that's just a little bit of what he said about this. So to me, I mean, you factor in, and he talked about each of the transfers. He talked about pretty much all your guys who were going to contribute. The one that I did not see him talk about was Bishop Boswell, the freshman. But from what I've seen, he's come in. He's transformed his body. I don't know how much you expect from him this year, but Rod Clark talked about your transfers and your returning guys that we knew about. I didn't see anything about Jordan Gainey in there either. And that doesn't mean anything bad on either one of them. It's just the questions pertain more to specific guys. But, starting with Zakai Ziegler, talks about how he can distribute, how all the things he could do. They talked about that combination of Zakai Ziegler and Felix Okpara, the transfer from Ohio State. And Rod Clark said, you would think by watching these two guys that they've played together for years, said their chemistry is insane. He didn't say insane. That's my words on it. But he talked about how, how the lobs, how Okpara is around the rim, how Zakai and he play together. I want to find those quotes actually that he talked about it. He, let me see here, because there was a lot. Here it was. He said, somebody asked, what it's been like watching Zakai Ziegler and Felix Okpara play together. He said, if I'm being completely honest, watching them play together, you would think they played together for years. I think that they're probably the perfect complement to each other. And I think we said that as a staff when we first got Felix, that he was going to be a welcome addition here because of his vertical ability and going up and catching lobs, and Zakai being a guy that's grown that part of his game as he's been in college. And so it's kind of like a safety valve for him. Anytime, it was like yesterday in practice, there was a switch that happened late practice where Zakai had a big switch onto him and Felix had a guard switch. They were on offense, and Zakai, it was late in shot clock. He just kind of threw the ball up at the rim, and Felix just jumped up and got it and just scored it over the top. And he said he told Zakai that's what you should do. That was something that said that Felix Okpara seemed tailor-made for what Zakai Ziegler wants to do. He's not necessarily your scorer. They talked about later on, Rod Clark did, that J.P. Estrella will be their best kind of low-post scorer. But the fact that he'll be that rim protector, he brings that athletic ability. That, to me, I think he brings more to the table in terms of what Tennessee needs than what they had with Jonas Aidoo, Tobe Awaka last year. And that's no slam against those guys. It's not meant as a slander to them. They both did good things for Tennessee last year. Regardless of how I feel about them leaving, they still did good things last year. Felix Okpara, though, was brought in to be a shot blocker, a rim protector, that athletic body around the rim. I'm going to talk about the rest of the transfers too. Okpara excites me what he brings. Here is the guy. Obviously, you got Chaz Lanier, Darling, Stone Dubar, which I'll talk about those in a minute. The guy I've really, if you've listened to my basketball videos and stuff, then I love watching his video. I love what this guy brings. And Rod Clark talked about this dude and what he brings and how Coach Barnes has not had a player like this as Igor Milicic Jr. I can't tell you enough how fired up I am about what this guy brings to the table. 6'10", Last year at Charlotte, he had averaged double-digit points. He averaged over 8 rebounds per game. This guy can shoot. Rod Clark said he is a guy who can shoot 38+% from three-point range. This guy can rebound. He can drive. He can finish. They even said here, and this kind of fired me up a little bit too. As you'll notice, I come in a little amped up on this one after reading this. But here's what he said. He said, Igor is different. When I talk about the guys that have changed the dynamic of our team, he's probably one of the main guys that you think about. Since Coach has been here, I'm sure you guys watch Tennessee basketball, and we've had a guy play for 4, the spot that is 6'10". Or he said, since you've watched, when have we had a guy play the 4 that is 6'10"? Can dribble, pass, and shoot. If you watch some of the videos, and I'll get back to the quote here in a minute, I posted, go by, I'll just post my kind of off-season basketball playlist. And if you'll find some stuff on Igor Milicic where I broke him down after he committed, just showing some of his stuff. The dude does everything good. He does everything great. I'm just trying to figure out how this guy slipped under the radar. I think he's an under-the-radar guy who has a chance to be a game changer on this team. But getting back to that, he says, and when I say shoot, I mean could possibly shoot 38+ from 3, right? He hasn't had that, talking about Coach Barnes. Coach, be first one to say he's never had anything like that. Things he can do with the ball. Coach had him run point for a little bit yesterday in practice, actually, and he looked good. We tried some different things with him, and he's met the challenge. He's really competitive. He plays really hard. His dad is a high-level coach over in Europe, and his dad called the other day and said, Igor said his hardest thing he's ever done, and it's the most fun basketball he's had. They keep talking about in each article how they're playing really fast in Knoxville. You get a 6'10" guy like that who can step out and shoot, who can rebound, who can pass, who can drive. That's a game changer. Normally in college, I say normally, not all the time, your big men are more versatile than they used to be. Now, your Felix Okpara, he's not going to step out and hit jumpers or anything. His game is around the rim. It's kind of a bigger version of Tobe Awaka in the sense of what his offensive game looks like. He's not going to step out and score or anything. He will do all his work around the rim, but he's definitely, athletic ability, height, finishing ability. I would rate those higher than Awaka. Awaka, possibly a better rebounder, but I don't know. Akpar's a good rebounder coming in. I think that one's an interesting to compare. But if you put in, all right, we talk about guys returning. They talked about just Jemai Meshack. Let's get to Chaz Lanier, and I'm going to put it all together here, try to wrap up, put it all together. Chaz Lanier talked about coming in. There was an article after that where they talked with him. One thing I've stressed on here, and they asked Rod Clark this, they asked Chaz Lanier this, and you're going to think about this recruiting, especially if guys like Chaz Lanier, Dubar, Okpara, Milicic. Now, Okpara's got some extra eligibility left. The other 3 guys, they have 1 year. Let's say these 3 guys go to get drafted. They go get signed, something like that after the year. Rod Clark was asked, how much did what Dalton Connect did, Dalton Connect going to the Lakers first round, help them with recruiting? He said, man, it was big. It was big. Chaz Lanier was asked, seeing Dalton Connect get drafted, come in, do what he did, how much of a difference that make? And he said that was definitely factored in to the decision as well. One thing they asked, and I've said it on here as well, with Chaz Lanier, he stated that a big difference for him coming here is the physicality. It's definitely more physical at Tennessee than North Florida. The game's faster. They play at a faster pace here. We've always kind of looked at Tennessee as a half-court set, I think, for a while, up till definitely last year. I thought the team did play faster last year, maybe at times the year before, but this year, with the bodies, with what they have, with their shooting ability, you mix in this team's defense, you mix in their ability to shoot better, to score better. Who's to say this team can't cut the nets down next April? Who's to say they can't? They're going to have an opportunity to win the national championship next year. I don't know the possibilities, the probabilities, anything like that. I'm not even worried about it. I know from what we're seeing, here's what you've got. You've got Zakai Ziegler. You've got arguably the best point guard in college basketball. You're bringing in a Chaz Lanier. What I was getting back to my point, I kind of got off task a little bit with it. I said it with Dalton Connect last year. You're seeing it now. Chaz Lanier every single day is going against the best. It's not arguable to me. The best defensive player in college basketball in Jabari Meshack. He's talked about it. He said Meshack is physical. Shaq, they call. He is physical. Talked about Ziegler, how quick he is when he guards as well. That's two of your best defensive players in college basketball. Ziegler, SEC Player of the Year defensively last year. But to me, and this is nothing against him, Meshack's the best defensive player in the country on it. Zakai Ziegler is up there too, though. Make no mistake about it. You add in Darlene Stone-Dubar. They said this is a guy, pretty dry sense of humor, but he's pretty much straight to the point. This guy means business when he comes in. I read Rob Lewis was talking about from VolQuest.com, talking about how Dubar, it seemed to him, had really kind of, put on more muscle, transformed his body, especially his upper body in there. And I've seen, I can't remember who, if it was Lewis or Grant Ramey or who, that talked about Dubar has a chance that they think you must kind of see that stretch for that Josiah Jordan James role. And I wonder how he'll play it, because he was a top 5 offensive efficiency guy last year. Could he be better at that role? I think it's a possibility. But at the same time, though, if you got Igor Milicic go play the 4, I think that kind of negates, unless Dubar's coming off the bench, which could be a possibility. You're going to have, based on what they're saying, the guys who've taken steps, who have put in the work, you could go 10 deep with this team. And I mean that by saying Meshack, Chaz Lanier, Meshack, Igor Milicic, Felix Okpara, and then you get into, we talked about Dubar. I'm not even talking about Cameron Carr, and they talked about him. Jordan Gainey, and then they talked about J.P. Estrella and Cade Phillips. Rod Clark talked about those two guys, J.P. Estrella and Cade Phillips. Said, I think Phillips maybe took 6 days off, Estrella 10. Said they've come back in, they put in the work, they've gotten more physical. Said that in Cade Phillips' end-of-year meeting last year, he talked about, I guess he was kind of relatively new to basketball, more of a football guy, and that he talked with the staff that if he could really get his mind right and wrapped around it. This is not the quote, but kind of was focus on, getting things right. He thinks it would make a big difference. Rod Clark spoke highly of both guys and the work they put in this summer, said that they've kind of, toned up with their physique. They're putting in work, said they've gotten so much better as well. That sounds to me like both guys can play a role on this team. Both of them have come back and put in the work this offseason. Cam Carr, I thought it was interesting. I thought it was kind of a temper the expectations thing from Rod Clark. And I liked it, honestly, because one outlet, I can't remember who it was exactly, has Cam Carr like the 8th pick in the draft this year. And Rod Clark said, I think it's pretty interesting guys are saying that when you've really not even seen him play. And I was kind of the same. And it's based on his measurables, based on his talent, based on his athletic ability. He said the one thing with Cam Carr, and what's the common denominator in Knoxville for Rick Barnes and staff? It's defense. He said what they have to realize with Cam Carr and really get through to him is you can be the best defensive player on the floor with your athletic ability, your speed, his ability to block shots, all that he does. He said Cam Carr is a tremendous worker, a hard worker. He expects big things, but it really kind of seemed to me like it was a temper of the expectations as far as a guy who will contribute, but I don't know that a guy who will necessarily be a lottery pick after this. I think it's going to be hard. I think he's definitely going to have a big role, but to me, it seems like your main scorer is going to be Chaz Lanier. But I'm thinking Igor Milicic. Again, I cannot stress enough what this guy brings to the team. And if that game translates over, and, if it doesn't, he won't play. But these guys know when they're getting – this is a thing with Rick Barnes. You're recruiting these older guys. They're on basically their last year of college basketball. You're either going to the NBA, you're going overseas to play, or you're going out to get a job in the real world. Based on what you've seen with Dalton Connect last year, just got him to the first round. Frankly, he got screwed on his draft position, but I love it, being a Lakers fan, that he fell because it was still the draft. People say the Lakers didn't add anybody. Yeah, they did. They added Dalton Connect. The ones that are saying that are totally negating what the Lakers added in Dalton Connect. But anywho, You get into that with what they're adding with Milicic, with Lanier, with these guys. I mean, I think at that process, Lanier, Dubar, Milicic, 1 year left, you're wanting to get to the NBA. You're coming in, you know the expectation. You're coming in, I think, with a business-like approach. You're going to come in and work your butt off with the anticipation of helping your team, but also getting the next level. Chaz Lanier talked about the NBA, told him they want to see him create for his teammates and improve his defense, basically, is what I took out of that. That's what I said the whole time. That's probably the feedback he got. The scoring was not the problem. It was the other aspects of the game. He's going to have there's going to be a great cast around. Man, I cannot stress it enough, guys. I'm super excited about this basketball team and what they're capable of doing this year. And they've talked about, it was a little bit of teaching in the get-go. I don't think there's going to be a problem with this team meshing. I don't think there's going to be a problem with that. You'll see the rotations. Of course, they'll change as it goes along. But it's, I don't have the schedule off the top of my head. I know they're playing another tough non-conference schedule. Rick Barnes, to me, this may be his best shot at a national championship since he's been in Knoxville. This is going to be a talented team. I was fired up from the portal. I'm fired up now about it. Obviously, I'm fired up for football, but basketball is not that. It's only a few months away itself. So I'm fired up. I hope you'll stick with it because I can't stress it enough. If you want basketball, Lady Vols basketball, baseball, this is your place. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm out doing people in football. I'm not. There's a lot that's been doing it a lot longer than me. And they do good jobs. I'm not anything. I do a good job of football too, but basketball, baseball, this is your place. This is always going to be your place for those. I hope you'll be here even when it gets to those times in the postseason when others decide it's cool to cover it for that time. Stay with who's gotten you to the dance at that point. Frank Rock, House of Orange Sports Channel. Share, like, subscribe. Memberships, there are the options. If you hit that join button, it'll give you those three options, $2.99, $4.99, and $9.99 as well. Hope we can build that up, do some cool things later on down the line. But I hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday. Last but most certainly not least, go Vols.